there will be a test. I gave up being a musician and playing in bands sometime in 1973, right around the time I reached the peak of my pre-adolescent career, playing on stage to a packed auditorium at Emerson Junior High School with my band, Sudden Death Overtime. Jumpsuit opened to his navel, exposing his hairless chest. The hulking, long-haired Chris Kimball flanked Tom on the other side of the stage and resembled a 12-year-old version of Neil Young, slashing against my rhythm on a Gibson knockoff. They were the bad boys, while our drummer, Andy Kaplan, was like me, more of a nerdy, good kid who qualified for the band more with dedicated practice and a love of music than with any kind of attitude or coolness. I don't remember the bass player. We played our only full gig on the school's playground, not far from where I had once given Michael Jackson change for a quarter. It was only a couple years after that initial burst of rapid-fire Jackson 5 hit singles, and right about the time he had gone solo with the alluring but less successful Got to Be There. In other words, he was on the verge of being a has-been at the age of 12. And his parents put him in a public school for a semester, maybe to give him a sense of grounding, or maybe to save a few bucks. Based on my one encounter with Michael Jackson, this apparently wasn't the best idea, since moments after giving him a couple of dimes and a nickel, he ended up being chased by screaming girls across the concrete field, just past the spot where we had gigged only weeks earlier. I wonder if he saw our set. That was the end of my first go-round as a performing musician. This was 1973. There wasn't an indie music scene. The clubs were only seen as stepping stones to playing sports arenas. You were a star or you were a nobody. I kept the Telecaster, but it stayed in the closet for the next 5 years. I was done. I quit. I wasn't looking back. I was born in a crossfire hurricane, and I howled at my mom the driving rain. But it's all right now. In fact, it's the gas, but it's all right. Jumping jack flash, it's the gas, 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 gas. Still got it. So this event here, you might know this is for a book that I have out called I Wouldn't Say It If It Wasn't True. And I've been doing a show around the UK for the last week, and I'm going to do a little shortened version of the show, a little different from the one I did yesterday for those of you who are in Walthamstow. And I'm going to focus on some of the did someone say wow? Big Walthamstow fan here. I hear it's the next big place. It's the Brooklyn of London, I guess. But I'm a lot of this book and this show is about songwriting, and I've written and recorded about 400 songs. I've written and not recorded about 1,000 more, and you won't ever hear most of those. But this one is the first song I ever wrote, didn't record, and didn't play until this tour. I wrote this song when I was 9 years old, at an age when you're supposed to be out playing football, like the round one or the long one, take your pick, with your friends in the schoolyard having fun, all smiles, goofing off and stuff like that. I was a loner, a lonely kid, an only child to a single mother, writing and thinking about morose songs. So my first song at 9 was called Sing My Blues, and I just happen to remember it. You want to hear it?
Yeah.
All right. with us, no one there to sing with us, no one there to cling with us, no one there from near and far, no one there to play guitar, no one there to wear my shoes, no one there to sing my blues, sing my blues, pay my dues, watch me lose, sing my blues. 9 years old. And I kept writing years after that. I actually came out of retirement at age 17. You didn't read about it in the press probably, but like Oasis, it was kind of a big thing. The comeback. And I grew up in LA, Los Angeles, but I went to school in a city called Davis in Northern California, just outside of Sacramento, maybe not far from San Francisco. And I was entranced at the time, this was like 1977, and I was entranced by the punk rock and new wave scene that was happening. And I said, maybe it's time to start playing in a band again. That would be fun. And I wanted to play a band that reflected the music I was into, which meant you didn't have to be, as good as, a prog rocker or whatever. And I looked for people in the city, in Davis, that might feel the same way as me. And I met a young woman in one of my classes who, like me, was a fan of the Jam. And she said she had been in her school choir when she was younger. And I said, "You're the lead singer. I'll play guitar and write the songs." And that woman was Kendra Smith, who some of you might know that name. She, of course, was in the Dream Syndicate, later in Opal, pre-Mazzy Star Band. And we did our first band together called Suspects. And I started writing tons of songs for Kendra, and we recorded a single. And it kind of was, it was my on-the-job training, I guess, figuring out how to be in a band and travel around and set up gear and that kind of thing. But there was a guy in our band who was 10 years older. His name was Steve Suchel, and he knew things we didn't. He had seen the Kinks, he had seen the Who, he had seen the Beatles. He had an amazing record collection, and he would turn me on to stuff all the time, and he liked my songs. And one day he said, "Steve, you might not know this record, but you should hear this. I think you're going to like this." And he reached into his collection, and we're all fans of records, so we get excited by the idea of hearing something new. And he pulled it from the wall and put the vinyl on the turntable, brought over the needle. I glanced over to what he was holding, and there was a banana on the record cover. I don't know, it's interesting. And he put the needle down, and at that moment, my life changed. Sunday morning brings the dawn in. It's just a restless feeling by my side. Early dawning, Sunday morning. It's all the wasted years not too far behind. Watch out, the world's behind you. There's always someone around you who will call. It's nothing at all. Sunday morning, and I'm falling. I got a feeling I don't want to know. Early morning, Sunday morning. you crossed not too long ago. Watch out, the world's behind you. There's always someone around you who will call. It's nothing at all. Watch out, the world's behind you. There's always someone around you who will call. It's nothing at all. Sunday morning, Sunday morning, Sunday morning. Thank you. So, at this point, I started becoming a lot hungrier for new sounds and kind of, bands that were less known and lesser known than less known and even more less known, to find bands like we all like to try to do, that could be my group that nobody else knew about. And I found one that I just fell in love with called Big Star. I always wait for the applause on that because and you're too cool for that, I know, but a lot of times people will go, oh, Big Star, yeah, of course, oh yeah, we all love Big Star. But in 1979, at least in the US, there were 20 Big Star fans. There was me, Peter Buck, Peter Holzapfel, and then maybe 16 other people. Not many. And part of the Big Star allure was the whole idea that they were that obscure after the lead singer, Alex Chilton, had been in the box tops. And the first time he walked into a studio and opened his mouth in front of a microphone, he sang the letter, "Give me a ticket for an airplane, ain't got time to..." Where did that voice come from? But it made him a star. And ironically, the band Big Star made him not a star. Think about that. But it inspired me to get on a Greyhound bus from Los Angeles, California, 2,000 miles to Memphis, Tennessee, just on the off chance I might find him and talk to him. So I did. Got on the bus, always, a long Greyhound bus trip, and had this record. I think it was put out here in the UK, a 10-inch single by a band called the Pantherburns. And I'd heard Alex was in the band, and there was an address on the back of the record. So I figured, I'll go there and knock on the door. And the guy who answered the door was the lead singer of the band, Tav Falco, who... Yeah, right. Oh, see, there you go. See, yeah, Tav Falco. But they were unknown at the time, so no one knew what a Tav Falco was. But Tav was nice, and he said, well, I can't take you where he lives, but I know where he drinks, so I'll take you there tonight. All right. And I met Alex, and he was very friendly, and I bought him a beer, and he asked me to buy him a pack of smokes, and I bought him cigarettes, and spent the next 7 days hanging out with Alex Chilton, buying him beers and cigarettes, and talking about all kinds of things, and it was great. He would talk about philosophy and literature and love and sex was a big one, and then he would talk about anything except Big Star, off limits. Didn't want to talk about that, but I was cool. All right, you apparently don't like your band that I love so much, but that's okay. But after 7 days, well, let me tell you, Alex was at his usual spot. I wandered over and sat in the seat next to him. He was as welcoming as usual, and he asked if I was having a beer, which I knew was code for a request for me to buy him a couple for us to drink. I had checked my remaining funds and estimated what I needed for my trip ahead, and I was a little alarmed. I was not hanging on to as much money as I'd hoped to have for the coming weeks, especially in those days before you could extract money from a wall with a mere piece of plastic and a few remembered numbers. I knew that my days as the Deep Pockets barfly needed to come to an end. Alex, I said, I hate to say it, but I really can't afford to keep buying you beers and cigarettes. Alex replied, well, you don't have to stay neither, do you? I knew it was time to go. But the whole time I was out there in Memphis, I had a cassette in my back pocket that I had recorded a song at home before the trip. And I wrote the song and I really was excited about it and thought it was good. And I thought, geez, is it just me, or maybe this is something new that I could follow up and people might really enjoy. And I wanted to play it for somebody on the trip. I really was dying to. I thought someone's going to like this. And I thought, Alex might like this. Didn't have the courage to pull it out and say, listen to my song. So I went back home and found a bunch of friends, the choir singer, this Kendra woman I was talking about, and a guy named Carl Bracota, and a drummer named Dennis Stuck. And we started playing music, and this was the first song we ever played together. I tell you that we've been through this. I know I told you that before. I try to find out where we miss. It gets to be such a chore. 'Cause ever since that time I told you it's so, something gets my mind and I don't let it go. And then stories and words, they're here and gone. 'Cause that's what you always say. I try to sit and talk with you. You know that moods change all the time. I try to wait a week or two, but by the end I'd probably change my mind. 'Cause ever since that time I told you it's so, something gets my mind and I don't let it go. And then stories and words, they're here and gone. 'Cause that's what you always say. I try to sit and talk with you. Our moods change all the time. I try to wait a week or two, but by then I'd probably change my mind. 'Cause ever since that time I told you it's so, something gets my mind and I don't let go. Then stories and words, they're here and gone. 'Cause that's what you always say. Stories and words, they're here and gone. 'Cause that's what you always say. Stories and words, they're here and gone. 'Cause that's what you always say. Stories and words, they're here and gone. We were off and running. I'm just standing here waiting for you to come clean. I'm just standing here waiting for you to come clean. I feel what you want, but I don't think you know what I mean. I'm not worried about you. Why should I be? I got a phone call from your mother. She wants to know where you've been. I got a phone call from your mother and she wants to know where you've been. I say, yeah, mama, I don't know where she's been. Something happens and they call you on the telephone. Something's missing and you know they won't leave you alone. I'm not worried about you. Why you worried about me? I'm not worried about you. What should I be? I'm just standing here waiting for you to come clean. Woo! Yeah! That was it. The Dream Syndicate was born. We were a band. We had become, an entity, and people around Los Angeles just took to us immediately. It was just an incredible thing. Just to, there's kids who were playing in the basement. Suddenly, we were the talk of the town, and more shows followed, and we started playing with bands, a little scene called the Paisley Underground, with bands like the Bangs and Salvation Army. It was just quick. I was talking to somebody today about this, from our first rehearsal to recording our first EP and playing our first show, opening for, gonna joggle your mind, a band called Brian Brain, to a sold-out club show. So, woo, one woo. I'm counting it. One woo for Brian Brain, one for Tab Falco. But from our first rehearsal through recording our first record to that first show was 3 weeks. And then just straight up from there, and naturally before too long, and all of the good things that were happening, we said, well, it's time to make a record. We should go in. And there was a local label called Slash Records that was the cool label in town. They did X and the Blasters and Gun Club and Lydia Lunch and Flesh Eaters and all kinds of cool bands. So they said, we'd like to have you on the label. But the one thing is, we're not going to give you much money to record. And we found a studio in the east part of Hollywood that stays open all night. Like a laundromat or a 7-Eleven or whatever. And you can record cheap as long as you can record from midnight to 8. I'm like, all right, sounds good to us. So we did. We went in and we recorded, for the most part, in a couple nights. And on the last morning, I left the studio at 8 a.m. and got into my car with a cassette of the mixes sequenced in the order they would appear on the album. I drove across town to Westwood, where I opened the Rhino record store where I worked, to start my shift, and cranked the tape at top volume on the store's stereo system, reveling in the certainty that we had made a record that reflected the music we loved and what went down at our best live shows. And I remember thinking, well, if I never make another record again, at least I'll know I made one really great one. I dreamed last night I was born 1,000 years ago. But when I woke up, I was lost with only one way to go. When you smile, I don't know what to do, 'cause I can lose everything in a minute or two. It's not there to put you against all other years behind, 'cause history kind of pales when it and you are aligned. Yeah. When you smile, I don't know what to do, 'cause I can lose everything in a minute or two, and it seems like the end of the world when you smile. There ain't lived a man who is anything more than bones and sack. It doesn't take much to hold the possibilities back. Yeah, when you smile, I don't know what to do, 'cause I can lose everything in a minute or two, and it seems like the end of the world when you smile. Yeah. I don't know what to do, 'cause I can lose everything in a minute or two, and it seems like the end of the world. Yes, it seems like the end of the world. Yes, it seems like the end of the world when you smile. When you smile. And things started going great. The record came out, and we're just having a great time. Really wonderful reviews all over the place. We toured the U.S. for the first time. We got a call from the management of U2 and said, the band would like you to open a 3-week U.S. tour, and we said, sure, I guess, us, why not? And what happened in the wake of that was labels started sniffing around, and we had a little bidding war, and it was Geffen Records said they'd give us a Bob Dylan song no one had ever heard before because a secretary at the label was dating him, and I wouldn't say it if it wasn't true. And EMI Records said, well, we'd love to have you on the label, and we'll do you the great favor of helping you write your songs. And finally we ended up at A&M Records, and they were great because they said, do what you want, we love you, just go make a record, and here's a bunch of money to go make it. All right. And he said, who would you like to have as a producer? A producer? What does that mean? Oh, that's the guy who comes in and helps you make a record. We already made a record, we know how to do that. But we said, okay, and after discussing, we chose a gentleman named Sandy Perlman, who had produced all the Blue Oyster Cult records and the Second Clash record, a lot of other things. And he came in and he showed us what a producer does, because I had a song that I'd written, kind of a gun club kind of thing, sort of, And he said, in his Long Island voice, yeah, it's good, but you gotta slow it down so they can hear the words. All right, producer. Like this? Yeah. All right. Feels good. Mouth with the pug nose, caught me with this sister in the wheat field. Got a couple buddies, tied me up and threw me in the Oldsmobile. I said, Matthew, are you crazy? As it started closing in for the kill. Matthew slowly holds a 10, let me hear to die in Merrittville. There's a game they play in the summertime. There's a game they play when it's hot outside, and I wonder why they left me here in Merrittville. Sally with the narrow hips cut the ropes and said that she could clear my head. She made a dirt path in the back and led me all the way to her daddy's shed. I said, Sally, who believed that we'd have to come so far for a thrill? Sally let me go that night, weak, tired, and spent in Merrittville. There's a game they play in the summertime. There's a game they play when it's hot outside, and I wonder why they left me here in Merrittville. Oh, Wynn with the holy book stopped me as I stumbled down the road today. He said, get on your knees, boy. It's time you learn the right way to pray. I said, William, I had no idea that the Lord had such a will. William drove his pointed cross and he left me here to burn in Merrittville. There's a game they play in the summertime. There's a game they play when it's hot outside, and I wonder why. Oh, there's a game they play in the summertime. Yeah, there's a game they play when it's hot outside, and I wonder why they left me here. They left me here. They left me here in Merrittville. So we went in, they say you've got your entire life to write your first album and 6 months to write the second one, and that was true. But we did write a second album, 8 songs, because they were long. If you know the Dream Syndicate, we put out a record a couple years ago where the first track was 20 minutes, so not hard to fill up a record, really. But we had 8, and we figured, hey, the first record we made in basically one night, but I know we're on a bigger label, things, are different now, we got a producer. This might take a week, so it took a week. It took 2 weeks. It took 3 weeks. It took 2 months. It took 3 months. I'm starting to go a little nuts. At the point where we'd spent 2 full months on guitar overdubs. Not my guitar playing, but the other guitarists, where I kept wanting to come in the studio and see how things were, and they kept saying, not yet, not yet. Thinking, this is kind of crazy, and I was getting a little frustrated. It's quite a jump from making a record in one night to spending this much time. And I started drinking a lot. a lot. We became the drink syndicate, if you will. At least I did. A lot of Jim Beam, a lot of anger, a lot of kind of lashing out at my bandmates, and not being a pleasant person, but I was so frustrated. I just, I felt like the band I loved, this music I was so excited about, suddenly just was getting away from me. And everything I would do to try to change things, to kind of somehow make things get on the right track, would just go the opposite way. And what's interesting is around the time I was writing this book, which is over the course of the last 5 years, I was also writing songs and collaborating with people and recording things. And once it came time to put it together for a new album on Fire Records, right here in the East, I realized all these songs I was writing while I was writing the book were about the same things, which is no surprise. A lot of songs about frustration and things working out and wishing things worked out better and being nostalgic and feeling little moments of vindication, and then, all those things that were written about in the book. And this song, the title track, is very much about being in a situation like we were when we were making Medicine Show and spending all that time, and me just trying to figure out how in the world I could make it right. Everything I did turned to sand. Endless rain filtered through my hand, filtered through my hand. Time and time again. Everything I did turned to dust. In winter time I find I must do my best to search for the light. I'm trying to make it right. Everything I did with best intent. Every straight line I walked somehow got bent. Still I tried to scale the heights. I'm trying to make it right. With my fingers in a Chinese puzzle. The harder I pull, the further I get from freedom. Lord knows that I tried. I'm trying to make it right. Something happened once the new year and the fourth month of recording began, and I reunited with Sandy Perlman in the studio and started singing again. Maybe the time off had done us all well and given us perspective. The vocals started coming more easily and the album began to take shape. Up to that point, I think I was so distraught that we were no longer the band we had been, either in sound or mode of working, that I bristled every step of the way and alternated between anger and desolation, making the process difficult for everyone around me. Now, after I'd taken some time away, the record no longer bummed me out. but instead began to feel like its own thing. A widescreen, dramatic, and cinematic experience. This sounded unlike who we'd been before, but also unlike anything I'd heard before. I started really digging it. Maybe because I started singing better, and that pleased Sandy. I was no longer singing every vocal like a giant fuck you to the process, but rather as a person who loved the music and wanted to add the right element. Chalk it up to finally letting go of my ego, or learning to embrace the process, or even the much needed time apart. But Sandy and I were now on the same page, enthusiastically pursuing the sound and style that became Medicine Show. I got a page one story buried in my yard. I got a troubled mind. I'm going down to the Medicine Show. If I've got to choose between doing penance and doing time, I'm going down to the Medicine Show. To the outskirts of town, I'm going down to the Medicine Show. I say, hey, conductor, now don't you stop until you hear that gypsy sound. I'm going down to the Medicine Show, but I know that it's hard to be a reasonable man when you start finding reason for everything. But tonight I'll get some answers, baby, all at the Medicine Show. At the Medicine Show, I'm gonna find me that gypsy girl that likes to dance and cry. When I go down to the Medicine Show, we're gonna lay that burden down beneath that lonesome gypsy sky. When I go down to the Medicine Show, yeah, we're gonna lay that burden down beneath that lonesome gypsy sky. When I go down to the Medicine Show, when I go down to the Medicine Show, when I go down to the Medicine Show, when I go down to the Medicine, 1, 2, 3, 4, show. It might be, the thing I'm going to read about right here could have been 40 years ago today. Somebody might tell me later, but let's assume it was. And we landed at Heathrow Airport, and were immediately shuttled in a no-frills, rickety passenger van to our first gig at the venerable and legendary Dingwalls in London. The show had sold out shortly after it was announced. We knew that, but we hadn't been told much more about what to expect. As we pulled up to the club in Camden, we saw a giant 18-wheeler truck parked outside. That must be ours, I joked. It was. Now, on a club tour of the U.S., a band would normally travel with drums and guitars and amplifiers, knowing that every club would have its own PA and monitor system. This apparently was not the case in many of the European venues we would be playing. Or maybe somebody at the label decided it would be more professional to bring our own PA system. I don't know. What I do know is the giant truck was ours, and the crew was in the process of loading our theater-sized sound system into the humble punk rock club. The label had hired a 5-man crew, tour manager, sound engineer, monitor engineer, lighting director, and a stage tech who would oversee setting up our equipment and making sure guitars had all the necessary strings and were hopefully in tune as well. As hard as it is to believe now, at a time when I meticulously plan every one of my tours down to the letter, we didn't know any of this until we showed up. We had become accustomed on the tour with REM we'd done a few months before in the States to everything being handled and to not worrying about a thing and just getting up and playing. We assumed things would be the same this time until about 10 minutes before the show when bass player Mark Walden noticed the guitars we had brought from the US were still in their cases backstage, strings completely loosened from the flight and far from ready to be played on stage. It's hard to say what the gentleman who had been hired to look after our guitars had been thinking, but there was no time to ponder such things. Mark Walden, Carl Picot, and I quickly tightened the strings, tuned up the guitars the best we could, and hit the stage. Now, unfamiliar amplifiers and drums, a new and seemingly absent crew, jet lag, a first day on a new continent, and a return to being a 4-piece band after the piano-based sound of Medicine Show. None of these things seemed to faze us. In fact, maybe they lit a fire beneath us as we played a ferocious set to an enthusiastic crowd. Some of you may be here tonight. Anybody at that show?
Yeah.
Yeah? All right. Was it good?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, good. We were on top of our game, as he will attest. Loud and proud, and for a moment united in the excitement that something brand new was happening. Granted, we were a ragged, jet-lagged, questionably tuned band who chose to end our set with our rendition of Ghostbusters, an inside joke bordering on a meta wink at the current pop culture. Ironic or defiantly reverent, a sloppy mess or an untamed beast, it didn't matter. The UK music scene was waking up from a hypnotic haze of icy cold synthesizer bands, a future that already seemed stale and mired in the past. We offered something raw and real, and that seemed to be just what the doctor ordered at that moment. We were the first of many American bands to follow, raised and reared in garages and sweaty bars, rather than producers' lairs and pricey studios. And it must have felt like a revolution. Our casual, laissez-faire attitude was our badge of honor and part of the lure of this new, unvarnished music scene from the US. In other words, we were once again the hot new thing, and it felt great. Just ask this guy down here. This is another song off the new album that sings about the way we were feeling at the time. Scars, I got 'em pickled in a jar. Fables and warnings, I eat them for breakfast every morning. Come and see for yourself, the time away has done me good. I'm ready to face the day, but I don't think I should just yet. Just yet. I'm making good, I'm making good, I'm making good, I'm making good on my promise. Misses and directives go through me like laxatives. Tell me once more, it will be much easier to ignore. Come and see for yourself, the time away has done me good. I'm ready to face the day, but I don't think I should just yet, just yet, just yet. I'm making good, I'm making good, I'm making good, I'm making good on my promises. I promise that I'll be there one way or another. That will be enough, oh yeah, reason to bother, oh yeah, I think I'm making good, so good, I'm making good, I'm making good, I'm making good, I'm making good on my promise, I'm making good on my promises.
Yeah.
And we did. And we proceeded for the next few years to make another couple records, tour, come here so often in London, tour around Europe, and kind of have a new revitalization, going from our initial period of being just kind of cranky, noisy underdogs to being a band that could barely stand each other and took 6 months in the studio, just hunkering down at the ripe old age of 24 and figuring out it was time to move on and just get good at what we did and enjoy each other and the music we played. And we did do that. But like all bands, at least all bands that aren't wildly successful, and we were sort of in that middle area, we eventually figured it was time to move on. And we made one last record. And it's actually a story that I haven't told yet on this tour, but I'm telling tonight because we had signed to a label called Enigma Records at that point. And the head of that label is here tonight, Bill Hine. And he was a big part of the story of the band from our very beginning. And he brought us around and liked the band and said, let's go. You know, you guys are rocking. We're behind you. And we at that time were feeling the wheels starting to come off. And like, maybe it's time to move on. I wanted to do other kinds of things. You know, I wanted to see other people musically. And but I remember going by the Enigma offices. Now this is 1988, and bear in mind, just 5 years earlier, we had been, I guess, the vanguard of a new sound. We had been kind of the cranky misfits against the mainstream. Well, now we were kind of the old guard all of a sudden. And I remember going by the offices one day, and they gave me a bunch of cassettes to take on tour. And there's some cool stuff. I mean, I remember Smithereens and Mojo Nixon and The Dead Milkmen, some cool stuff. And then there was one more cassette, and it was of Daydream Nation by Sonic Youth. Wow. And I heard that record, and I said, oh, that's kind of the music we'd wanted to make 5 years ago, and now somebody's coming along and taking it somewhere else, and maybe it's time to do something different. And that's what happened. We made our last album that ended with this song that in a way was a farewell to a band, a very melancholy but proud end. And I really take pride that the final song we recorded back then was a commentary maybe on our own lives. I'm thinking just lately of a record by a band called The Odd Tours, who made a great final record where the last song was also a great commentary on future generations that might appreciate their music. And I think this was our take of that sort of thing. It was called When the Curtain Falls. Skipped ahead to the end of the book. Took a chance and took a look. Sometimes weak and sometimes weary. Sometimes an answer isn't necessary. I'll see you when the curtain falls. In this town, nothing is laid to rest. Nothing wasted, nothing second guessed. Sometimes a fool rises, sometimes a good man falls. Sometimes we don't pay attention at all. I'll see you when the curtain falls. There's a bad moon on the rise tonight. Might be time to set the story right. We can crawl and we can creep. We'll make excuses till we laugh ourselves to sleep. I'll I'll see you when the curtain falls. And the audience has rushed the stage. But no one's there to meet their rage. Passed out drunk on cheap delights, too bored to scream and too tired to fight. I'll see you when the curtain falls. 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 Thank you. And that is where the book ends. In 1988. It's not where my story ends, because it's 2024 and I'm still here right now. If it was where the book ends, I wouldn't be looking at you. A lot happened in the meantime. There's, I think, going to be a second book, but let's take one at a time. That's and we had the help. You'll be signing copies of the book later on out there. And thank you to Jawbone for adding me to their great roster. It's a great book publishing company. But things did happen after the book, after 1988, after the Dream Syndicate broke up. I made solo records. I played in bands like the Baseball Project, and who's the drummer, I believe is here today, and Gutterball, Danny and Dusty was in the mix, all kinds of things. And the maybe proudest moment came in 2012 when the Dream Syndicate got back together again, and the band was reunited, and we were able to end the story the way we wanted to, although it's not over yet. But we came back and we became the band that we wanted to be when we started out. We played the music we loved without any regard for anything more than just doing that and having fun doing it and liking each other while we did it. And it was a real vindication. And we made 4 albums we're really proud of. And you don't get that chance often in life to go back, whether it's in love, in music, in work, in family, and say, you know what? I don't like where that ended up. Let's take 2 and make it right somehow. But we did. And it's a reminder that in life, that no matter what happens, how low things go, how dismal things seem, it's a possibility you can look back in the past and say, yeah, those were good times. You can look at the present and say, it's going to be okay, these are good times. And you can look at the future and say, no. Looking back in the whole thing, these were, and will be the days of wine and roses. The word from outside is she's on the ledge again, drawing a crowd and threatening everything. I'm here wondering just where I fit in, and everybody says that I don't care, I know I don't care. Everybody says that I don't care, no. I'm just trying to remember the days of wine and roses. The priest from the parishes looking for persuasion. Man with a notepad wants verification. Somebody said this was my creation. And everybody says that I don't care, I know I don't care. Everybody says that I don't care, no. I'm just trying to remember the days of wine and roses. days of wine and roses. Her mother said it's your fault you never look after her. Father's arranging to get back the furniture. I'm here wondering just what the reasons were, and everybody says that I don't care. I know I don't care. Everybody says that I don't care. No, no, no. I'm just trying to remember the days of wine and roses. Everybody says that I don't care. I know I don't care. Everybody says that I don't care. No, 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 no. I'm just trying to remember the days of wine and roses. Yeah. Thank you all so much for coming out tonight. Really appreciate it. Thanks to everybody here at Rough Trade, my wonderful label Fire Records. I've got a new record in the book over there, some t-shirts, and I'm going to come back in March with the full show at some place that we haven't figured out yet. But see you all there. Again, thanks a lot. This is so much fun. Y'all take care.
I'm not going to run to the...
Thank you for coming out tonight, everybody. If you would like to get your book or record or CD signed, Steve will be signing them down the front of the shop, the left-hand side of the shop next to the book. Otherwise, please get home safe and have a lovely evening.